views expressed on this program are not those of intellectualradio.com, its subsidiaries, or sponsors. Encouraging, educating, and empowering you into action. This is Warriors Talk with your host, Lady ReShell.
Hello. Welcome to Warriors Talk with author and founder Lady ReShell, where we move away from awareness towards action. It's Testimonial Monday, and our topic for today is cancer, a diagnosis, not a death sentence. We are live on Intellectual Radio. We just heard from the Drive at 5 with Roman. Keep it locked right here on Intellectual Radio and allow us to feed your brain. On the last episode of Warriors Talk, I talked about navigating relationships with a narcissist. Go over to YouTube, type in Intellectual Radio, and stay connected for any episodes you may have missed. The quote of the day is, cancer is a marathon. You can't look at the finish line. You can take it moment by moment, breath by breath, or oftentimes step by step. Here are your trending topics for today. Fifth Ward Alderman Raymond Lopez announced this morning that he is dropping out of the mayor race for Chicago, hoping to departure will give support to another candidate who will defeat Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Election day is just over 3 months away, and some political veterans are looking to replace Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Mayoral candidates, businessman Willie Wilson, and Fourth Ward Alderwoman Sophia King was among those submitting their petitions. We cannot accept a paycheck, Willie Wilson said. We're going to give whatever they give us back to the churches and the communities. What's good for the city is to ensure Lori Lightfoot is defeated and denied a second term, according to Lopez. I've always known that this just can't be about me, Lopez says. This is about the city of Chicago, and he has said it from the beginning that sometimes it means that you have to do what's right, even if it hurts. Those are your trending topics for today. If you are tuned in on any form of social media, please like the show, share the show, invite someone else in on the show that you feel may benefit from this valuable information. My special guest today, I am going to introduce her to you right after I cover my sponsor, who is Emanuel C.O.G.I.C with Pastor Michael Richardson, who has a special message for us. And they have been sponsoring the show since the show started, so I'm so excited about them. Check them out every Sunday morning at 10:15 a.m. on Facebook.
Greetings, I am Pastor Michael Richardson.
And I am First Lady Anastasia Richardson from the Emanuel Church of God in Christ. We're located at 3058 West Van Buren in Chicago, Illinois. We are building upon a solid foundation.
And we're inviting you to join us every Sunday morning on Facebook Live at Emanuel C.O.G.I.C at 10:15 Central Standard Time. And you can also view our videos on our YouTube channel at Emanuel C.O.G.I.C-MR. Once again, this is Pastor Michael Richardson
and First Lady Anastasia Richardson, and we're from the Emanuel Church of God in Christ. We are building upon a solid foundation.
All right, here you go. My special guest for today is a cancer survivor, or some may even say warrior. She's a singer, songwriter, and band leader of Frankie Parker and the Gentlemen. She is one of Chicago's premier performing artists. She is no stranger to intellectual radio. Help me welcome to Warriors Talk, Frankie Parker. Hey, Frankie.
Hey, how are you, ReShell? Thank you for having me.
I am so excited that you have taken time out of your busy schedule for us today.
Thank you.
Some wisdom.
Thank you for having me.
Much. You're welcome. I'm excited about today.
Me too.
Yes. So of all of the things, Frankie, that you have accomplished, you have conquered, and now breast cancer is one of those things that you had to add to your list.
Yes.
What was your introduction to cancer?
So, January of 2021, my sister and my brother-in-law and the rest of my family had a huge in-home New Year's Eve party. I'm never home on New Year's Eve because I'm usually working with the gentleman on New Year's Eve. But because of the pandemic, I was home. And the next day, we started moving some furniture to move my sister and my brother in love into their first home. I bumped my breast on the dresser while I was moving the furniture. They left a bump. And by May of that year, that bump was still there. So I went to the doctor's office, and I inquired about the bump, and she told me to wait a month to see if it goes away. Well, at that point, I kind of knew that it wasn't going to go away, but I was obedient, with the doctors, not knowing that I should have been more of an advocate for myself at the time. So anyway, I go to get the mammogram, and they do some examinations, and then they determined that I need to have a biopsy, long story short. And June 16, 2021, as I was leaving the cemetery from burying my great grandmother, I get a call from the hospital stating that I do have breast cancer. And so the journey began. I began chemotherapy September of that same year. I just completed chemotherapy January of this year. Radiation is complete. That was done in a 25 session process from July to August of this year.
So some would say you're a baby coming out of this.
Yes.
Yeah, wow.
With the baby hair, child.
Yes, I see. I'm loving it. I see the curls are popping. Yes.
Thank you.
I call it chemo hair, right?
Chemo. And you know what? It's not that far from my original state. So I'm kind of happy, good hair, I guess, whatever they like to call. I hate that term, but you know what I
know.
mean.
That's what they call it. I always say it's chemo hair. Like,
yes.
Yes. Wow. I'm amazed at how outspoken you are about your journey. I know some people that sometimes when they just are going through the journey or just finishing up with treatment, sometimes they have this, I don't want to say shame, but they're not as outspoken about it. They're not advocating about it. And I don't know if it's because they're still learning about it, but I commend you for being outspoken and just willing to share your journey.
Yes. So of course, there are moments, where you have these questions as to why you're going through what you're going through. I do not take my platform lightly. I've always used my platform to inspire, to educate. Even when I was in your role, as I was actually a radio broadcaster on intellectual radio, I just always took my mission in life to serve others by sharing my experiences, whether it be cancer or marriage or parenthood. So getting this mission, to me, it's a mission. It's a part of my development and my goal, to my purpose on this earth. I feel that I have to be outspoken about it because, especially someone at my age, there's not a lot of advocacy for it. I'm 39 years old and I'm still considered young, dealing with this illness. So I've just taken it as a part of the journey. This is the reason why the big mouth girl had to encounter this type of challenge so that it can be discussed more. And also in the Black community, we have a tendency not to discuss illness. It's taboo for us to talk about what medical issues we're facing. Generationally, we don't have those conversations. Between my grandmothers, there were things that my grandmother, who passed away in 2020, that I didn't find out about her until she was unable to speak for herself, and I had to do some digging on my own. So I'm hoping that me being open and honest and outspoken about it will give other people the desire to be free in their expression when it comes to dealing with their illness.
I totally agree, especially by you being 39, and we know that this breast cancer thing is hitting women younger.
Mm-hmm.
It's no longer an older woman's disease, as they like to say, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of young women are finding themselves in this position And they need that advocacy. They need, people to advocate for them, to push for them, because a lot of times they feel like you're too young. You don't need to get this type of testing. You shouldn't be worried about breast cancer because, you're not at that age to even get a mammogram. So sometimes they do push younger women off, and it's putting their life at risk. So
Exactly.
yeah. So I think
Exactly.
it's important to hear stories like yours so that, young women will take their breast health seriously.
Absolutely. And I actually became curious about breast cancer many years ago. And I believe in my heart of hearts, I don't know, I can't tell you that I knew this was coming per se, but there was a lot of preparation within me, I guess from a divine place, from a spiritual place that kind of had me inquiring about it at a young age. I had my son at 26, and I had him at St. Alexis Hospital in Hoffman Estates. And when I had him, they give you tons of brochures and books and everything. And one of the books was about breast cancer. And I'd read somewhere that top heavy women were more susceptible to, the risk of it. Well, I was a top heavy woman, triple D, E, I've always been very top heavy. So I started looking into that a while ago. And when I would go to the doctor, I would ask, hey, am I old enough to have a mammogram yet? I'm just curious. Can I have a mammogram? And it went from, no, you're too young. You got to wait until you're, I think the first time it was 32, then it went to 36, and then it went to 40. So had I not had that bump, because I had no pain, I wasn't in any pain. Had I not had that bump, I wouldn't have been able to have a mammogram until the age of 40. That's at the time when I was diagnosed, that was 2 years away. Lord knows what that would have looked like, what stage I would have been in, and how more vigorous the treatment would have been had I had to wait until the age of 40. So,
yes, and I think this is why a lot of people are lobbying when it comes to different policies that deals with breast cancer and the age, because cancer doesn't care. Cancer don't care what age you are. When it strikes your body, it does not care. And just because you're not of age, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to go in and request a mammogram and be able to get it, especially, if something is present there, then they can get on top of it and not have to have this person go through all this, as you say, rigorous treatment that's really unnecessary if they catch it early. Leah says we have to have these hard conversations with our families and be our own advocates.
absolutely. Absolutely. I remember my grandmother having a mild stroke. I think this is when she had a mild stroke, and I was in the hospital with her, and she was coherent enough to answer some of her own questions. And they asked her, have you had any surgeries? And I'm in my head, you know how you're listening to a question and in your head you're giving the answer, but you're waiting for the person to say something. I'm like, nah, she ain't had no surgery now. And then she goes, yes, hysterectomy, 1985. And I'm like, hold on. Excuse me. And, this is the wrong time to ask her, right? Because she's slightly coherent. And I'm like, when in the world did you have this surgery? And then fast forward a few years later, my sister had to have some issues with her reproductive organs. I had a cyst that they were concerned about on my reproductive. So I'm saying all of that to say, even though it has nothing to do with cancer, we do need to talk about these things. Especially when there's a BRCA gene, they have that DNA BRCA gene test that you can take to see if you carry it. If you guys don't talk about it with your mothers and your grandmothers, then you'll never know, if they went through it. Because, back in the day, people would go through surgeries and just sweep it under the rug. You wouldn't even know. It was like you sneaking out of town to do something. You're making up a story to get away with it, so nobody has to know that you're having this surgery, because it was so taboo to talk about. So I do encourage conversation. I do encourage you being open in your conversation with your elders. You may have to take a lesson or a fuss out about it in that process, but take the fuss out and listen to what they have to say, so that you are aware of exactly what's going on within your family, in your traits and everything.
You are so right. We do not have these hard conversations. Why
No.
do we wait until somebody's either really on their deathbed or they pass away, and then all of a sudden all of the stuff start coming up about what's going on? And that BRCA test is there so that you can alarm your family and say, hey, I have the positive BRCA gene. This is what you may be susceptible to. So go and get it checked out. Have a
Exactly.
conversation with your doctor. We need to stop that. It's just pure ignorance that we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to face the illnesses and the things that are in our family. Face it, educate ourselves on it so that we know how to, some of these things are preventable. Some of these things we don't have to deal with, that, we just sit back and just pretend that it's not there and sweep it under the rug, but it's not going away. Our people are still suffering.
Absolutely. And part of it is our conditioning too, because in this country as Black women, we're told that we have to be strong and resilient, and nothing stops you from working. You have to be a laborer at all costs for your family. And, so we don't talk like we should. If we had these conversations, not only would we be more, attentive about our physical health, but our mental health could be addressed too. The things that trigger us, the actions that our mothers and grandmothers have taken because of what they've been through. Sometimes it may not make any sense to you because you haven't, been through the process. But then there are some times where you can find little pieces to the puzzle and say, oh, that's why. And no wonder how, so that's important. I just think we need to have conversation anyway, to sustain our mental and emotional state as well. And that's a big part of fighting something like breast cancer, having stability mentally and emotionally, when it's needed most.
I totally agree. My mom is one of those women that always, if she feels like I'm doing too much, she'll be like, you need to take a break. You need to say no. You need to, don't go out. I'm like, Ma, I'm doing this. She's like, you need a break. You don't have to do everything all the time. And although sometimes, a lot of times I don't even listen to her, but it makes sense.
Yes.
Because for women, our body is not built the same way a man body is built. It's not built to withstand all of the stress and everything that they can. And this is why a lot of times our bodies be breaking down and we're sick, because we're trying to carry that same weight and our bodies are not built for it. We're not.
Absolutely.
So I agree with you when it comes to the psychological part, the mental part. A lot of times the doctors don't focus on your mental. A lot of times you're left dealing with it on your own. Was that something that you reached out maybe to a counselor or something to help you mentally? What was in place for you to help you stay sane through this?
Well, I have a phenomenal therapist. I've recently taken a break because I just felt like I was just using it too much, But I've been going to the same therapist for the past 4 or 5 years. I'm an advocate for therapy. I understand the level of stress that my day job and my night job and motherhood and friendships, and I understand how all of that is just can be chaotic without somewhere to center yourself. So 2 things I believe in: therapy and meditation. Meditation to me, that goes with prayer too. So 2 things: meditation and therapy. And she's phenomenal. Shout out to Cheryl. I'm going to even shout out because she's amazing. And she is spiritually intact. You know what I mean? So it makes things, and she's a sister. So that helps tremendously. But I don't want to sound arrogant when I say this. My mental stability was not as tough for me to overcome when it came to my illness, because there was something in me that always felt that I was going to beat this. I don't know how to explain it. I mean, just in conversation, I'm sure you understand that I'm a spiritual woman. So I have this faith that I know can move mountains, So I never really had a fear of leaving this earth. Of course, when it first hits you and you don't know what the situation is, and you have the questions of the inevitable and the questions of endurance, if you will, and then the questions of the unknown, because chemo was unknown to me, radiation was unknown to me. But I can't say I ever had a pessimistic or a negative outlook on this. I think it was more for me like, look, all right, guy, you put this in my lap. Let's just get through this so I can move on and get this album done. This album done. I need to get back on stage. Okay, here's the schedule, Jesus. Okay, we're going to start in September chemo. You're going to be done with me with this chemo by January. And then we're going to move on to this radiation. We're going to move on to this double mastectomy. And let's get it over with. That's really how my attitude was about it. And I refused to stop living. To the best of my ability. I refuse to lay in the bed and be in this bubble of depression. You know, you have your days when you're off, but for the most part, my attitude was like, look, now, cancer is not going to kill me. You know, my parents are not going to bury me. My son is not going to grow up without his mother. And I just kept that spirit going. I just did not feel that. I don't know. I can't describe it any other way. That I guess I'm just bossy, and I was bossing my own life around. You know what I mean? You know, with the help of God, of course.
I totally can get it. How was your relationship with God before the diagnosis, and then once you saw yourself coming through it?
I'm a church girl, so I grew up in church all my life. I've been going to church as long as I can remember, since I was 3 years old. I mean, I started my career singing in a choir. I mean, that's how I think about it. You know, I was a choir kid, and that's on the church level, because there's a difference between the religion and the spirituality. I've always had a strong walk. I've always been an advocate for missionary work. Both of my grandmothers and my parents, you know, towards, you know, like the mid childhood years, they really were involved in church. But I grew up, you know, I started going to church with my grandmother, and I got my parents to go to church, you know. So I've always been deeply rooted in spirituality. The hardest part for me was, how do I say this? Reciprocation and love, if that makes any sense. Meaning that I'm a giver to a fault. I do for people all the time. I'm the one that takes care of the family. I'm the oldest grandchild on both sides of my family. So, you know, I was always kind of like in big mama training. That's what I call it. You know what I mean? So I was used to, you know, me being the caretaker, me calling people. I'm the one that people call when they're going through and you know, they need advice. So my spirituality, the weaker end of it for me was receiving the love and generosity back, and putting my pride to the side and saying I actually need help, or accepting the help that was offered.
Well, how important was it for you to have that support system around you to be able to offer you that help?
I think I was about to put my hands up. That's so rude. I think that for me, how do I say this? I would say that for me, it gave me freedom. I had to learn the freedom of receiving. I don't know how else to say that. We just talked about Sunday school yesterday about Paul's journey to this island of the barbarous people, when they got shipwrecked on this island, and they were it was rainy and cold. They had no supplies or anything, and these foreign people from this island took them in and cared for them. And not understanding, not even they were aware that they were Christian, that Paul and the people that he was shipwrecked with, most of them were Christians. Luke was with him too, but that these barbarous people were Greeks, and they had a different religion, and yet these people were still open to receiving Paul and those that were shipwrecked and just taking care of them. And sometimes the point I'm bringing up is that sometimes the way that people are packaged, you have to go beyond that and receive the help. So some Christian folks don't believe you should mix and mingle with other folks that don't believe the same thing that you believe. But sometimes your biggest help comes from people that you don't expect it from. So for me, it was more of like, this is the ultimate test to see just how much you're loved, Frankie. How many people are going to step up? And it wasn't a passive aggressive thing. It wasn't me testing people per se. It was just like, man, I'm always the one giving. I never feel that, I'm going to get back what I give. And to see it happen was just, it was amazing. It was a beautiful thing. People literally breaking into my house and dropping off roses. I mean, I'm like, how did you get in my house? Cards being mailed and, supplies being sent to my house that I didn't realize I needed. Services rendered. One of my closest friends is a nurse, and she worked in infusion with children and knew exactly how to take care of me. So seeing that happen only makes my spirituality blossom, and then it makes me want to continue to give, and not in the spirit of receipt, but just because I've been so blessed. Now I want to give more. That makes any sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I always say that your support system is so crucial to your survivorship.
Yes.
You need other people to survive. I don't know why anybody would want to go through a cancer journey by themselves. It's just, you shouldn't. When there's so many people out there that's willing to help you, love you, and it doesn't necessarily have to be blood. And most of the time it comes from other people, like you said, even other religion. So you just have to be open enough to receive it and not feel ashamed, because you're going through something that nobody is going to blame you for having a down day or needing help. So you shouldn't feel bad because you need that help. But I get it, because we're labeled as strong women. So some people expect us to be that 100% at a time. And even we expect ourselves to be that 100% at a time. But it's putting unrealistic expectations on us, especially when you're going through something horrific as cancer.
Absolutely. And sometimes you just got to set yourself aside. And then here's the other thing that I realized too, and this is kind of maybe me kind of manipulating my pride, in that sometimes people just want to be a blessing because they've been blessed, and you're blocking that opportunity for them to do the same thing that you may have done for them. So I have heard that several times, even from my pastor, who I love very much, so like a brother. He always, is checking me about, receiving help and being vulnerable about certain things. Because there's a point of vulnerability in accepting the diagnosis, right? But there's also a point of that vulnerability that you need to present to those that love you, because some people just want to help and just want to feel like they're contributing to whatever it is, that you're, going through from a positive standpoint.
Yeah, I think about men when you was just talking. I think about men, how they're fixers, right? So if their woman has a cancer diagnosis, there's really nothing they can do about it, right? So if they're trying to do things that are outside of what the doctors can do, then allow them to help you, because that's their way of fixing it. So yeah, you have to allow people to not block their blessings, because they need to do what they need to do in order to get their blessings. And we just have to set our pride to the side and receive, because you may be a blessing at another point to somebody else. So
exactly. And I would say this too, and I mean, this is a keep it real moment. Be careful who you receive help from, because there's that side of you that has to be generous enough to receive the generosity. I don't know if that makes sense, but then there's another side where people, I questioned. There were times when people would send stuff to me or send things. I won't say who, but someone sent me some money that I didn't really have a relationship with. I just felt like they were doing it just to be saying that, just to say that they had done something for me. That's different to me than genuine generosity. So I took the money and I gave it to somebody else, because I believe the energy that came from that gift would have been detrimental to my healing, because I know that the place that person was coming from was not from a genuine place. So I'm big on that. I'm big on, I'll take the gift, I'll accept it, but I'm not discriminatory against those that may not believe like me, but I am very cautious of what I allow in my space. You know what I mean? So you kind of have to watch that too. Um, because what looks golden is not always gold, right? So I was very cautious of who I discuss certain things with. I wasn't secretive, if that makes any sense.
No, you
But
were selective, and it's
yeah,
okay.
I was very cautious with that. I was very cautious with the conversations I would have. And this also gave me an opportunity to kind of like uh to observe those that were there because they really wanted to be there, and those that were there because I was Frankie Parker, or because they just wanted to be able to say that they did something. Because some folks are like that, girl, I talked to her on the phone, she all right. But you're not really concerned, you're just being nosy, you know what I mean? I had to tread that lightly too. That's to
It's
keep it real, Frankie. And
Yes, thank you for keeping it real, Frankie. It's good that you were able to be in that space to where you can able to discern something like that. Because with cancer going on, sometimes your head could be in a cloud somewhere. You could be far away from what everybody else is doing. So that you was connected in that way that when some bad energy is coming around, you have to protect yourself because right now you're fighting. You're fighting and you waiting, you getting your healing. So you don't need anything that's going to try to disrupt that. So I get that part.
Yeah,
I totally get it.
I had to tote that line with that one.
I do not blame you. I totally get it.
It is certain people that I would never have the same relationship with, and I'm okay with that because I needed that to happen. I needed to be able to see exactly who was Team Frankie.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So, and that wouldn't have happened had it not been for cancer. It's a lot of great things that came out of this. You know what I mean?
It's not all bad, right? That's why I
Oh
said
no.
it's not a death sentence, it's a diagnosis. And I always say that cancer is not a death sentence, but it's an awakening to live your best life. And part of living your best life is getting some of those people around you that, don't mean you the best for you, right?
Exactly.
So, and it's okay to put people in compartments to say, okay, this is the type of friend you are, and you're in that compartment.
Exactly.
And it's okay to do that. And sometimes cancer makes you rearrange your life to where that's what you have to do.
Hello. It brings everything to a head to an extent. And even in my goals, even in the things the goals that I had prior to it have shifted tremendously. To me, it's been a gift. And I could talk about the material things, the spiritual things, it's tons of blessings that I've gotten out of this situation that honestly, had it not happened, I would probably have never seen or felt. So I'm grateful.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, Frankie. When we come back, we're going to talk about your sexy. Did you lose it? And then how did you get it back?
Okay.
So I am going to recognize one of my sponsors, who is Allstate with Paula Kelly. She's located at 327 East Glenwood Lansing Road in Glenwood, Illinois. You guys can call her at 708-758-3300. Let her know that Warriors Talk sent you. We are live on Intellectual Radio. We're talking to Frankie Parker about cancer, a diagnosis, not a death sentence. And we left off with talking about, we want to know, did she lose her sexy? And if she did, how did she get it back? Because sometimes they say cancer can steal your sexy. So
it can. Let me think. How do I want to say this? I was more concerned about my hair than my breasts. I've always had long hair. When I was a little kid, my grandfather used to call me Rudy Huxtable because I had big hair like Rudy, and then in 2001 I started growing locks. So I was growing locks before it got cool. My mother thought I was nuts when I cut my hair off to lock my hair. So prior to my chemo experience, I had hair all the way down my back, to about right here. Always big locks, big pretty locks. And to lose my hair, it was like I had to to completely re-identify myself. I still have trouble with that. I think I've had more issues with my hair than I have with anything else, adjustment wise. But boy, this is, Rochelle, you're gonna make me feel a little arrogant when I say this, but I think I never lost any sexy. I always
Yes.
thought I was bad, like I'm just keeping it real. There are moments, like today I put this sweater on for the first time since my double mastectomy, and to go from here to, some clothes fit differently, but it's forced me to rely more on my identity within with my emotions inside versus facial or body acknowledgement. I've always been a big personality. Performing on stage, I'm probably more conscious of my breasts because now you got to explain to people why you got one up here and one down here, and it's people seeing you for the first time might, having, a bit of a setback with that, but all of that will change with the reconstruction in August of next year. And I already told everybody I'm just gonna be, I don't know what to tell y'all. I'm gonna be super ratchet. I don't know what to tell you. My band members, the gentlemen, they're like, okay, we're gonna have to get our guns and start carrying our guns around because they're gonna be knocking the guys out the way. They already don't trust me around me. I can't have a boyfriend around them. They won't let me do that already. But come August, it's on and popping. I'm coming into the church house with the Beyonce music cueing, and I'm walking in there doing my thing. Pastor, you know what's up. I already told you. So I haven't experienced that. I just haven't felt uh any type of insecurity about that. Mm-mm, not at all. And I know that happens with women. I have girlfriends that have experienced it, and they look in the mirror, and of course you look in the mirror and you go, dang, I didn't realize that one day this would be happening. I call it right now, I call the breast cyclops because I got one that's got a tissue expander, and the other one doesn't have the expander in it because I had an infection and they had to take it out. But I'm like, I'm just rolling like a cyclops. It's cool. I'm a monster. It's all good, and I'm a monster in a hot way. I'm a hot monster, and that's how I look at it. I just have never. I'm not that. It's not a vanity thing because I don't want any women to feel like they should feel bad for feeling that way. But for me, my confidence shines from within, and I think that has a lot to do with the lock journey. Because when you start your locks, you go through the ugly phase. I hate that term, but that's how people refer to it. You can't, you can't retwist it, and you just got to let the hair grow. It might be a little dirty. You might have little mini locks poking out, and you just got to deal with it because you understand the results of it, right? You know that one day they're going to grow. One day they're going to be down your back, and you'll be able to manage it. I think that's just the same thing with my breasts. I don't really, yeah, not a problem for me. I'd rather be here than to have my breasts.
Yes, it's sometimes you have to look at it like that. I think, as women with the breast, I don't know if it's for us or it's for men. I know a lot of women, that went home to husbands. They like, no, I gotta go home with both breasts. I left home with both breasts. I gotta go home with both breasts. So you just have to figure out what's best for you and your breast cancer journey and be happy with it. So I love your attitude, Frankie. Like, you have a very positive attitude and not looking at this in a bad way, because some people can look at this journey and be like, oh wow, it's so dreadful. And I know a word that you mentioned was, demise. Like, a cancer diagnosis, don't look at it as a demise. You don't look at it like, oh, I got cancer, so I'm going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And we've heard so many bad things about cancer, and we focus on the death. But just listening to you, so much life in you, is so much life in you. I love your bubbly personality.
Thank you. Thank you. It's not going to change. Why?
It shouldn't. It really should not. It really shouldn't. It really
Absolutely. And it all starts in the mind. So if you think negative outcome will be your consequence, so i'm I'm totally full of optimism. Life is just so good. I can't explain to you just how awesome this process has been for me. One of the establishments I play for have a residency at this place called The Basement. Um, when I told the manager, who I've known for many years at this point, that I had an illness, immediately, what can we do to help you? Um, the band can still play here when you're on break. Just hire the right subs and make sure they don't suck, and they could continue to play. No one gets that. I received an award for the Wish Forever Foundation, which is in honor of Andrew Wisher, who passed away from cancer. But his family established his foundation to support those that continue to fight cancer in a way that exhibits living and enjoying life. So I received a grant from that. I didn't even know about it. The counselor kept coming past me at chemotherapy. Hi, Frankie, is there anything that I can do for you? I'm like, man, leave me alone. I'm good. I see this girl right here. This is my counselor. My best friend is a counselor. I'm like, see her? I got her. We're good. And he said, well, just fill out this application. And then I filled out the application like, oh, some money? Word. Filled it out. And I was picked for it, just by being who I am and continuing my efforts. My best friend that I told you about this, the nurse, she planned a trip for me and her to go to Puerto Rico. What do you want to do? What are you doing? Hey, want to go to Puerto Rico with me? And we climbed through the rainforest after my second chemo session. We're hiking through the rainforest of Puerto Rico. I get battle scars all on my arms still now from cussing her out and running through the rainforest. I mean, so I've had some really humbling and really awesome experiences that would not have occurred had it not been for this battle with cancer. So, what was supposed to kill me actually brought joy and made me stronger.
What doesn't kill you make you stronger.
Mm-hmm.
How has music played a role in your healing?
So music is like a baby for me. You got to whoop the music. You got to enjoy the music. The music can be a reminder of natural ability. The music has been, in some cases, inspirational. Some days music has been frustrating for me. There was a point where I wouldn't listen to anything new because I was like, well, I don't want to learn anything, and I'm a little upset that I can't be on stage. So I would have those moments where I would kind of go crazy, and everything was talk radio for a good 6 months. I was listening to Joe Budden and Pod Save America. I mean, getting my trash in my politics because I just had to stay away from it. But the weird thing about it is I wrote a lot during that time. So a lot of my writings transcribed to music. I spent a lot of time in the studio because I couldn't be on stage. So now I have an EP that I'll be releasing in the springtime because of it. Songs that I started writing prior to my diagnosis started to turn into, like, I don't want to say anthems per se, but they became songs of freedom. I guess that would be anthem. And one of the songs in particular, I want to kind of push towards non-for-profits to pick up for cancer patients, in particular Black female cancer patients, that they can use it as inspiration. Music kept me busy. I was like Big Brother on Facebook, watching all my friends and colleagues performing while I'm in bed, and I don't like that song. Well, that's cute. That was a nice idea. Well, this is a good rendition. Let me text them and tell them they should record this. It kept me busy. I pretty much managed my band from the bed. I would literally, set schedules, set lists, and get everybody in order, hire subs and everything from my bed. And they would be like, such and such happened at the basement. And I go, I already know, I watched it. Well, how did you know that? Because, and then the basement would accommodate me and allow me to climb the back of the stage to sit on the stage, so I would never have to encounter the crowd. I could just climb onto the stage, and I would literally monitor my band and run the band, fussing with no air, no way to breathe, just too weak to really do it, but still running my band. So there were times when I was mad, that I couldn't do, but there were even more times where it was more like, okay, do what you can. So again, had I not had this cancer diagnosis and all this free time, I wouldn't have an EP, because I'd be working 41 weeks a year and not making time to do what I needed to do musically in the studio. So it's been somewhat of a lifesaver, I guess, but a pain too, like a child.
Wow.
Like a child.
How can listeners stay connected to you?
Well, I am available on Facebook, Frankie Breezy Parker. In about 3 days or so, I will have the frankieparkermusic.com website up. Also on Instagram, Sounds of Frankie P with the 1F. And I'll keep my schedule for my shows on both my Instagram and Facebook until the website is up. But the website will be frankieparkermusic.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Frankie. I appreciate your wisdom. You're dropping gems and taking time out of your busy schedule to come and share with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, ReShell.
You're welcome. You guys, coming up next is at 7 p.m. is actually the People Show with Mark Wallace and Charles Thomas. Stay tuned for that. Join me next Monday at 6 p.m. I don't know why I'm saying 7. At 6 p.m. right here on Intellectual Radio. I'll leave you with these words of wisdom. Cancer is not a death sentence, but rather it is a life sentence. It pushes you to live. As always, thank you for tuning in to Warriors Talk with author and founder Lady ReShell, where we are changing lives, one warrior at a time.
Thank you for listening to this week's edition of Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell. To find out more about Warriors Talk, follow at Warriors Talk, the number 1, on all social media outlets, and Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell on YouTube. Please join us next week and every Monday evening at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time on intellectualradio.com for Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell, where we encourage, educate, and empower you into action.